Hey guys, see, I was like, well, are you coming? I'm gonna read. So you guys know that today I was cleaning, you saw that, but it's like so sad. I woke up today, I actually felt sick, like stomach, from like stress, anxiety, sadness. I was just like, it's sick, really sick. And I tried to like make progress today, cleaning and like um getting rid of things. Like you guys saw, both the trash are full. And then I have two bags already in there for after the trash comes. But anyway, so I tried to do my makeup and I start cry out. I don't think you can see now because I tried to like take some off just here, but like I'm just like great. So I'm like didn't want to look too horrible, but yeah, that's what happened. So wasn't this cute? I'm stuck, and I have a leotard. I didn't know if it'd be too like low cut, so I just promised a dog with glasses. Um, then we got okay, so we have a few pages left of the last chapter we were on. And you guys know, this book isn't titled, like the chapters aren't titled, but the sections are. And so actually the next section is called New Relationship Energy. Whatever that means. But we'll start that one soon. I don't know if is that a screen picture? Untitled. Maybe we're getting into their like jobs or whatever. I remember last time he was working on his fitness, so see what they're up to tonight. I missed you guys. Okay. Are these cute? I found these in the garage. They're brand new. Ugh. Yes, let's spill the teas. Mm. Thank you, Arthur. Oh, is that what it is? Pug? Okay. Let me see where exactly I was. Left on. Okay, so Jack was in his job at the college, and I guess they make him do like a mission statement or something. And there was said that there was just like one guy that was new, and he was talking to this guy. I think his name is Carl. I'm a photographer, but I do not use a camera. That's Jack. Then how? What I do was pour chemicals onto light sensitive photo paper to achieve interesting results. Okay. I use emulsions and developers and fixers in various regions and sometimes also like the way a painter might use paint. Uh-huh. And instead of using a canvas, I work on reactive silver bromide paper. Uh-huh. So you could say my work is sort of at the intersection of photography and painting and maybe alchemy with a few printmaking techniques thrown in as well. I call it photochemigram. I see, said Carl, who was staring at Jack and absently tapping his fingers on the table. And what does it mean? I don't follow. What's your hidden meaning? What's your art about? Oh, well, I guess if I had to define it, I'd say the subject of my photography is the photographic process itself, like it's chemistry. Uh-huh. But the images themselves don't mean anything, not strictly speaking. The pictures aren't of anything. They're non-figurative, misrepresentational, non-objective, totally abstract. My God. I always thought art was supposed to have hidden meaning. My art is about form and balance and texture. It's pure image. I guess you could say decoupled from meaning. I see. There was a pause now as Carl, the engineer, processed this. Quick question, though. You want to know why? A little. Why the hell is this my life's work? I might have said it nicer. Let's just leave it at some of my pictures look really cool, okay? What do they look like? So there are these like big fields of shadow and color, this swath through the bottom, and also these dark, like I suppose you could call them blobby, drippy things in the middle, with all these evocative, like little black streaky bits. Uh-huh. It's obviously hard to describe, obviously. I guess you have to see it for yourself. I guess. Here, have a look. And Jack pulled out his phone and retrieved the scan he'd made of his most recent work. A really successful example, Jack thought, with a central splotch that had achieved all these surprisingly interesting and cool, swooping tendril things. And he was explaining how the central splotch was made by placing unfixed reactive photo paper in a tray and filling the tray with water, and then using an eyedropper, releasing little dabs of chemical developer onto the surface of the water, which then diffused and diluted so that when it finally made contact with the paper at the bottom of the tray, it resulted in these cool forms that were all wispy and kinetic and cloud-like and ethereal. When Carl suddenly interrupted, "It looks like a bird," he said. "Okay," Jack said. "Well, it's not a bird." But it really looks like a bird. It's not supposed to look like anything. It's abstract. "I see a bird," Carl said. "Don't you see a bird?" And now he handed the phone to his neighbor, who nodded, and then the phone made its slow way around the table as everyone agreed that, yeah, it sort of looks like a bird. "And what is your field?" Jack said, finally taking his phone back, desperate to change the subject. "Engineering," Carl said. "Right, I got that already," pointing at the name tag. "Materials." "Okay." And Carl just sat there staring at him as if this perfectly answered the question. "Any particular one?" Jack said. "Plastics," Carl said. "Well," Jack said, nodding, "thank you for your service." They spent the rest of the lunch chewing their dry sandwiches and looking at their phones. Jack had an hashtag on the system update about his snoring. Apparently, he'd been doing it again last night, and he listened to a brief recording the bracelet had taken of his snores, which sounded like he was rhythmically going, without even breathing, which was pretty weird. There was also a new email from Benjamin, subject line, "We might have a problem," with several attached photos of what appeared to be the construction barrier surrounding the ship works. This wall had been bare plywood a few days ago, but was now covered all the way around with a single message, repeated many times, applied via spray paint and stencil. "Save Historic Park Shore. Stop the ship works." But Jack didn't have time to give the email any further thought, as the CFO had now come back to the lectern and was announcing the inauguration of an exciting new policy regarding the evolution of the faculty. This will let us make more informed choices about who to hire, who to fire, and who to promote, which certainly got everyone's full attention. Gone are the days when college professors could insulate themselves in the ivory tower, the CFO said, invoking one of his two favorite phrases, ivory tower, which he used pejoratively at least 3 times per speech. His other favorite phrase was, "to be frank," frankly, Terry, to be frank, faculty are out of touch with what's happening or with what's important to real people in the real world. Normally, this would have brought much more mirth to the assembled part-timers, as there was a popular drinking game they developed that depended on the phrases ivory tower and to be frank being used in close proximity But now they were far too worried about what the CFO was getting at here to engage in their usual sardonic side eye. For too long, academics have published in obscure journals that are read by, to be frank, no one, the CFO continued. For too long, universities have subsidized scholarship that's important to only a handful of elites. And to be perfectly frank, that has to change. The HR team began handing out sealed envelopes to each employee. Jack's had his name and rank written on the front and a red stamp over the seal that said confidential. The CFO continued, modern marketing departments know how to spend their money wisely, how to achieve a return on their investment, how to leverage attention to maximize their impact. And to be frank, it's time we bring that wisdom into the ivory tower. He touched something on at his lectern, and behind him, a big television screen lit up with a stock photograph of a group of business people in smart suits laughing. The photo seemed to have very little to do with the big words that appeared above the photo. The impact algorithm, written in an ugly, chunky typeface that Jack recognized as impact. The impact algorithm is a tool that tells us the exact value of each employee's contribution to the world, the CFO said. Then the PowerPoint advanced to the next slide, a list of things people do on social media and what each of those things was worth. Facebook share, $4. Facebook like, 19 cents. Instagram follower, 2 cents. Twitter mention, 30 cents. Common retweet, $7. Celebrity retweet, e.g. Kardashian, $4,650. Wow. The impact algorithm can quantify exactly how important your work is based on how many times other people mention it. The CFO said, for example, did you get a shout out on the Today Show? High impact. Were you cited only by obscure academic journals? Low impact. The algorithm lets us be absolutely transparent in our hiring decisions. We simply compare your salary to the impact, which reveals whether you're getting a return on our investment. Easy. Now please open your envelopes. What's the teaching? What? Sudden aggressive and ripping sounds, evoking perhaps impulsive children on Christmas morning, filled the ballroom. We've taken the liberty of computing everyone's impact score over the last year. The CFO said, if it's higher than your current salary, good job, and keep it up. If it's lower, well, to be frank, you have some work to do. And looking at his own number confirmed all of Jack's fears. His photography had not been reviewed, nor cited, nor tweeted, nor liked, nor shared anywhere. In fact, the algorithm could find only one mention of Jack Baker's art on an obscure YouTube gaming channel called The Tobinator, where the child host occasionally acknowledged that the art existed. This was, according to the algorithm, worth $13. His full impact on the world, $13. Meanwhile, across the room, Jerry from philosophy shouted, "Oh yeah," and raised his arms in Rocky-like victory. And then he began showing everyone his own high score, very high score. Jack could feel himself slumping down in his chair, and he was waiting for the corresponding posture alerts from the system's bracelet, which did not come. It did not come because he realized now, looking down at his wrist, he wasn't wearing the bracelet. Why wasn't he wearing the bracelet? He thought back and remembered taking it off in the bedroom last night before his spectacularly failed attempt at seducing Elizabeth. It must have been there still on the bedside table, which made him wonder further, how could the bracelet have recorded him snoring if it had been in the bedroom with Elizabeth and not in the office, where he'd slept again on the pull-out couch? He opened the app and listened once more, and it did not take long for him to figure it out. That wasn't the sound of snoring. That was the sound of a vibrator. Oh my god. Oh, okay, now here we go with the next part. New relationship energy. Ugh, sneaky, sneaky. Here they are, Jack and Elizabeth, entwined in her little bed, twisted up in the sheets. Mm, mm. She's lying face down, propped up on her elbows, chin resting on her hands. An enormous introduction to psychology textbook open on the mattress below her, and she's reading, occasionally taking a note, flipping a page. Jack's head resting on her lower back, his legs crossed, one foot hanging off the twin mattress, and he has a cigarette in one hand and a paperback in the other. A book of impenetrable philosophy he's reading for an art class. A beat up copy he found used at Myopic, and the only sounds are a page just turning, and the two of them breathing, and the occasional drag on a cigarette, and the associated small crackle as it burns. It's late on a Sunday. They have homework to do for Monday. They've neglected it all weekend because it seems vulgar to give their attention to anything but each other. By now, they are long past their first date and second date and third date and are well established in the we've had enough dates to stop counting the dates. They're doing the thing that new couples do, attending to each other so devotedly and exclusively that they've dropped out of the wider world. They spend all their time together, and thus they've developed odd and novel habits. A shared language, a bizarre kingdom of two. One of their favorite new pastimes is to imagine that the inanimate objects of Elizabeth's small apartment are actually alive, that the clutter of their private world is full of names and eccentric personalities and elaborate backstories. The dinnerware, the couch, various socks and hats, various scarves and mittens and coffee mugs, water pitchers, candle holders, all these things awaken, as in a Disney movie, when Jack and Elizabeth are home together in bed, pillow talking, breathing magic into their tiny world. All the inside jokes, all the references that only the other person gets, the adorable private nicknames, the way they're stubborn dedication to this immaculate new organism, the couple, can border on cult like. This, according to Elizabeth's psych professor and mentor, Dr. Otto Sanborn, whose current research specialization is, in fact, the complicated psychology of love at first sight. He says new couples employ identity via shared rituals, insider vocabulary, a sense of superiority over the whole outside world, but lack a true cult impulse to recruit and brainwash followers. The only difference between a cult and a couple is ambition, is something he likes to say. And yeah, true, Jack and Elizabeth, these first few weeks, have been utterly exclusive and private, spending full weekends in bed together, unclothed, uncovered, hours that pass, and beautifully long and unhurried drips, time that begins to feel to them as if it is, yes, holy, sacred. They lie together and read, they turn pages. Whenever one expresses the tiniest reaction, only a slight or the hint of a laugh, the other will stop reading and look over and say, what? It seems disallowable that they are reading separate books and therefore having separate experiences. They long to be in each other's heads, to know each other totally and completely. How could homework ever compete? Eventually, the attraction is too much to bear, and the books aren't picked back up. They forget about class tomorrow. They play this game where they hover over each other's bodies and study. They are explorers and cartographers, their bodies the frontier, and when they find something interesting, they touch it gently with a fingertip and say, what's this? The white flecks of skin on his left elbow, evidence of childhood chickenpox. The scars on the soles of his feet from a Boy Scouts accident where he stupidly walked into a smoldering campfire. The constellation of cowlicks on his head that make his black hair swirl like a map of ocean currents. It turns out that she is double jointed and can make her fingers bend witch like. She insists that one of her earlobes is slightly larger than the other, and he doesn't believe her at first, not only until they get out the ruler and measure. Her body, he discovers, has three shades of blonde hair, gold atop her head, straw on her arms, bronze down below, and he can spell out words by drawing each letter onto the skin of her shoulder blades. And she is unusually good at deciphering them. She has a very slight divot on the bridge of her nose, imperceptible when one is looking at her head on, visible only in profile. The result, she says, of a sports injury in high school. Which sport, he asks. Tennis. Tennis, right. Such a violent sport. I understand it's unlikely. How'd it happen? It was at practice. I wasn't watching where I was going and, well, forehead meet backswing. Ouch, he says. Then he lightly kisses her divot, which is henceforth nicknamed the Wimbledon Trench. She leans into the kiss as they make out leisurely, then passionately, then tenderly, then back to passionately, just kissing for 45 minutes straight, then big laughter when the heavy textbook falls from the bed with a startling thud, then another cigarette, the smoke glowing blue in the apartment's lamplight, lying on each other and talking until limbs grow numb, then a brief and unanticipated nap, then walking in the dark, famished, scrambling some eggs, eating them while still talking, always talking, late into the night, even till dawn. Is it morning, she says, when the alley outside her apartment's lone window begins to blur? Yes, how holy this is, and how unholy it feels to finally separate. How profane it is when they have to leave that room, put on clothes, get on a bus with other people, go to school. After 2 days of sex and touch and talk under warm woolen blankets, how blasphemous is the bus? She looks around and sees all these people not aglow as she is aglow, and she thinks you are all doing it wrong. And then sitting in her psych class and realizing she hasn't heard a single thing that the teacher has said for 30 minutes, she's been imagining Jack's hands on her waist, his mouth on her neck. She walks around campus in this state of light daydream until she remembers all at once, shit, she has a lunch date today with a girl named Agatha, a drama major Elizabeth met at orientation. Agatha was studying to be an actor, and Elizabeth, are people really named Agatha? And Elizabeth had vague notions of someday writing plays. It was a perfect match, is what Agatha had decided. We're going to be best friends, she declared. But now Elizabeth hasn't seen Agatha in a few weeks, and she has completely forgotten their lunch date. And so she races to the cafe where they planned to meet, arriving 30 minutes late and finding Agatha sitting alone, sandwich crumbs on the table in front of her, and she's crying. I'm so sorry, Elizabeth says, hugging her, sitting down next to her. I totally spaced out. Please forgive me. Agatha looks at her with red, wet puppy eyes and a balled up chin. No, she says, it's not you. Her words are coming out with a kind of musical fall to them, like bagpipes deflating. Uh-oh, Elizabeth says. Despite having known Agatha for only a few months now, she has come to understand that Agatha requires her friends to participate in and get all entangled with her dramas. Theater folks are sometimes like that, each tragedy needing to be imparted upon the audience. Elizabeth finds it both endearing and utterly foreign. She's never been so messy with her emotions, and certainly never so overt. Elizabeth studies Agatha's tortured, crying face and says, Grandparent? Agatha shakes her head no. Boyfriend? Again, no. Oh, Elizabeth says, audition. To which Agatha slumps down in the chair and says, God, I am the worst. Then buries her head in her arms like people do when they fall asleep at the library. You are not the worst. I am, she says, her voice muffled. I am literally the worst. You'll get the next part. That's what you said last time. Eventually, I'll be right. You'll see. In high school, I was Emily in our town, she says. I was Maria in West Side Story. I was Antigone in Antigone. What the fuck is wrong? Elizabeth smiles. She strokes her friend lightly on the arm. What she likes most about Agatha is that there is absolutely nothing guarded about her, nothing that feels hidden or mercenary. She comes from a small town in the middle of Illinois and wears plain t shirts and big chunky Doc Martens and really sincerely considers plaid boxer shorts an acceptable outerwear choice. Instead of wearing skirts, she ties big sweaters or flannel shirts around her waist as a sort of skirt suggestion. Her hairstyle is of the pulled out of the way genre. She wears bulky sweaters and old jeans that aren't even cutting edge in her little hometown, a place that, not even kidding, is called normal. Oh, Daryl told me about that. Closer to normal. Listen, Elizabeth says, you are a beautiful and amazing person who will find happiness and success. I know it for sure. It's all going to come together for you. And probably when you least expect it, you'll be minding your own business and pow, lightning bolt. Suddenly, out of nowhere, someone will recognize how great you really are. They'll see you. You just have to be ready for it. You have to be open to it. You have to appreciate the moment you're in. Like, look at this day. Look at this sunlight. Isn't it grand? And Agatha lifts her head off the arms and stares at Elizabeth for a moment, perplexed. What is up with you? She asks. Then she looks Elizabeth up and down and draws up straight and says, Oh my God. What? There's something different about you. There is? You're like radiant. I am? It's like your wall has come completely down. I have a wall. Is this why I haven't seen you in so long? Is there someone new? There is, isn't there? Tell me, confess. After which Elizabeth spills the whole long tale, feeling charmed and giddy about her new boyfriend. Sure, but also a little embarrassed that she's become this person. Lovesick, love drunk. She wonders if Jack is thinking about her this much, then feels actually wounded when she considers that he might not be. How this causes so much suffering. And that's when the worries begin, when Elizabeth's thoughts darken. In one moment, she's picturing her beautiful, sensitive artist boyfriend and reliving their long, delightful days together. And in the next, this poisoned question impolitely intrudes. What if he goes away? What if it all goes away? It seems impossible, unacceptable, terrifying even, that this love, which has become so important to her, which feels at this point sort of biologically essential, something that she would literally die without, is also so uncertain. It could go away. She has no control over that. He could just leave. And she begins replaying their time together over the past weekend and scouring it for mistakes. Had she really scrambled eggs naked while he watched? She imagines her body horribly jiggling, and she is mortified. Then the dread on the bus ride home, steeling herself for disappointment, telling herself it'll be okay if he suddenly breaks up with her. No big deal if he disappears. They've been dating only a few weeks. She get over him, feeling herself sort of detaching and withdrawing from her own body, as if she's merely watching herself as she walks to her building and climbs the 4 flights of stairs and enters her apartment and callously goes to the window, expecting the worst. But then she looks across the alley, and there he is, waiting for her, Jack, standing there at his own window, and he's written something in paint right on the glass. It says, "I can't stop thinking about you," which makes her feel as if her spirit has suddenly returned, snapping her back into human place. Across the dark alley, they wave at each other at exactly the same time, laugh at exactly the same time, put their hands over their mouths in exactly the same bashful way. She beckons him over with a small nod. He dashes out of his apartment, dashes into hers. "It's like you're in my head," he says. "It's like I'm suddenly sharing my mind." That's exactly what I was going to say. See what I mean? "I've been doing some research," she says. "About what?" "Love." He laughs. "You've been researching it." And she gives him a look like, duh. And he shuts up, smiles. "Of course you've been researching it," he says, attacking it from all angles. "It's part of my internship. We're studying it, love. I've been doing a lot of reading lately, cultural ethnography, psychological anthropology, doing your Elizabeth thing." "Yes. And and what's interesting to me is that so many different cultures had such similar ideas about it. People all over the planet, completely independent of each other, separated by continents and oceans and time, having never spoken to each other even once, all decided basically the same thing about love, which is kind of beautiful, I think. What did they decide? That love is both part of the body and separate from the body. It's intrinsic to us, but also divisible from us. I don't understand. "They thought love was stored somewhere inside us," she says, "in some real place, like a liquid in a bowl," which, if you think about it, is a pretty brilliant metaphor. It's a way to explain why love feels almost physical, biological. At this, he squeezes her as if to emphasize the point. She squeezes back and continues. "But it also explains why love sometimes feels fleeting, why it seems to occasionally go away, because it's a thing and things can run out. Where is it located? What's the bowl?" Most people thought the heart, also the hair or the kidneys or the blood or inside a tiny animal that lives within you. And at this, he sits up, stares at her searchingly, now very interested. "Tell me about that one." "The animal? Yeah, tell me about that." "Okay, well, before we knew anything about the brain or the nervous system, people believed that the reason they were alive was because there was something else alive with them or within them. This was how they explained the consciousness, that there was something inside them that moved them and controlled them, the animal within the animal, like a soul." There were different names for it, but yeah, basically, it was the essence or distillation of a person, the person's truest self, usually in the form of a bird or a bat or a snake or a butterfly or some other important local creature. And Jack nods and looks into his own lap, and it seems behind his long black fangs that a sadness overtakes him, visible in the pale skin now furrowed around his dark eyes. "What's wrong?" she says. "Nothing," he says. "It's just I heard the story once when I was a kid. I thought it was made up." "What is it?" "That when you're asleep, your soul leaves your body and goes out and explores the world." "Okay. So when you're dreaming, you're actually seeing is your soul out wandering. Sometimes your soul is a bird flying around, or sometimes it's a mouse. It takes the form of an animal and explores." Yeah, that's it exactly. That's what people believed. And the story I heard was that sometimes, rarely, but sometimes your soul encounters other souls out on their own journeys. And so when you meet someone in real life who feels really familiar to you, who feels just bam, instantly recognizable, it's because your souls have already met at night. How wonderful! I thought so too. Did you believe it? I didn't believe it before, he says, letting the implication of that just sort of thrillingly hang there. Before what? She says. He smiles. Before you. Oh, and oh, how she longs to love like that, grandly, instinctively, without self consciousness or hesitation or that constant, unwelcome, burrowing doubt. It all seems so easy for him, loving without worry or repercussion. He simply speaks his heart authentically, unfiltered by fear, which seems to Elizabeth like a kind of impossible sorcery. He does it again a few nights later at his art opening in his first solo show at a gallery on the ground floor of the Flatiron Building, one of several new neighborhood spaces whose events are drawing more and more outsiders each passing month. Strangers who emerge from expensive cars, driven in from rich suburbs, asking whether it's safe to park here. Nervous people who are transparently worried about the safety of their person and possessions, but also drawn to Wicker Park's growing reputation. It's undeniable scene. There's a rumor that a critic from the Tribune will be coming to Jack's opening. Benjamin Quince had written a press release about how the young photographer capturing Wicker Park's cultural explosion now had his first show, and the whole neighborhood is agog. The show is called Girl in the Window by Jack Baker. What Jack has done is to photograph tightly and diagonally and oddly askew computer screens on which there are open windows, all showing images of women in different states of undress. The photographs were taken at such nearness and at such angles and with such a shallow depth of field that the bodies look weirdly distended and fuzzy and textured and abstract. Jack then printed these images on large canvases so that a face or a body that on a computer monitor might have been the size of a postage stamp is now titanic. It sometimes makes it difficult to understand what you're looking at. This transposition of scale, people stare at Jack's photos, confused, until all at once the image resolves, and they realize with some shock that they are looking at a nude in super, super, super close up. Everyone is there at night, all the eccentric painters and poets and actors and filmmakers and other sundry oddballs Elizabeth has seen in the halls of the co-op, and many of the musicians she has seen in bars and the rock fans that Jack so triumphantly photographed, and a larger than usual contingent of 30 to and 40 somethings venturing into Wicker Park from their large apartments on the lake, or down from big homes in Evanston, or into the city from suburban points west. It is this audience in particular that seems to delight Benjamin, who is downright giddy at having drawn suburbanites to his squalid neighborhood to look at smut. "We're shocking the squares," he whispers to any local who will listen. Elizabeth stands next to Jack as he explains his philosophy to interested viewers. The job of the artist now, in the 90s, at the end of history, is not to create, but to recreate. Jack is saying to an older couple, collectors maybe, to remix, reconstruct, recontextualize in a world where the subjects for art are all exhausted, where everything has been photographed to the point of cliche. The task of art is to make things strange. The couple is nodding, smiling, absolutely eating this up. Thus, my use of online nudes, Jack continues, encouraged. It isn't the nude itself that interests me, but rather its ubiquity that the new internet is filled with these bodies. And I wanted to perform a kind of transubstantiation upon them, turning the 2D surface of a computer screen into an object in 3D space, turning ephemeral digital code back into something palpably real. Can we buy one? They ask. And Elizabeth smiles, kisses Jack on the cheek, and moves along. She walks among the crowd, eavesdrops, makes her way to the catering area, which is really just a keg with help yourself plastic cups stacked upon it. She doesn't know anybody here, or at least she doesn't know them well enough to walk up and mingle, so she's at the keg alone, drawing an overly sudsy beer, when Benjamin announces that tonight's artist wants to make a toast. And then there's Jack hopping onto a table and looking around the room and hollering, "Where's Elizabeth?" And then he spots her, and the crowd between them seems to part, and he smiles and raises his glass in her direction and says to everyone, "I'd like to dedicate this night to Elizabeth, the most brilliant person I've ever known, my inspiration, my muse, my Edie Sedgwick, my Juliet," which produces a collective awe even among the otherwise pretty cynical members of this crowd. After that, the feeling is like being scooped up and sanctified by the whole neighborhood. In the moment, Jack and Elizabeth's relationship turns from private to public, after which everyone wants to talk to her, everyone wants to include her. They knock on her apartment door at all hours and beg her to join them in some new escapade, mostly involving some great band at one of the many neighborhood bars, some band whose musicians stand on stage in secondhand sweaters and stare straight down at the floor, their long hair obscuring every distinguishing feature, faceless, flaccid, blasé, bent over howling guitars. Elizabeth down below, listening, beer in one hand, cigarette in the other, nodding in time, just outside the edge of incidental mosh pit. There are the shows they'll speak of. These are the shows they'll speak of so reverently in the years to come. These nights they see some particular band, while that band is still a neighborhood secret, playing in a dive bar for a crowd of 10 before all the record deals arrive. Before the band migrates to MTV, they see Veruca Salt at the Double Door, the Jesus Lizard at Czar Bar, Urge Overkill at Lounge Axe, Wesley Willis just out on the sidewalk with his keyboard playing for anybody who will listen, the Smashing Pumpkins at Metro, Liz Fair at the Empty Bottle, and all of them before they were famous. It will be a kind of glue between them, the fellowship of shared experience, the camaraderie of so many late nights, so many parties, after parties, hanging with the band, crashing drunkenly at one another's apartments, then hung over coffee and hash at Leo's lunchroom, and long afternoons searching for vintage finds at Ragstock, the patchouli scented clothing store with racks so stuffed it's often difficult to cry out even a single hanger, or browsing the narrow, crooked shelves at Myopic, the wood floors creaking with every footfall, or hanging around Quimby's reading the local zines or the X-rated comics or the newest edition of Adbusters magazine, or occasionally when they need a change of neighborhood scenery, they all hop on the train. One of them distracts the attention, while the rest jump the turnstiles, just leap clear over the bars like elk. "We're like elk," Elizabeth exclaims, a game that never seems to get old. They basically colonize a full car on the L, usually the last one, the most empty one, and head out to innumerable cheap adventures about town, to the lake, or free concerts in Grant Park, or the jazz clubs in Uptown, or the gay bars in Boys Town, or the dive bars in Logan Square, where those who are underage manage to procure alcohol in a nightly dare with bartenders and bouncers and local law enforcement, or they head to the tiny indie movie theaters that dot Chicago, little rooms with screens no bigger than a bedsheet, where Elizabeth sees A Clockwork Orange and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Fellini retrospectives and a midnight showing of Beach Babes from Beyond, and they all absolutely howl through. Sometimes they pile into one of their few working cars and venture out to one of the North Side malls to spend an afternoon among the yuppies. There is this game they play with employees of the Gap where the whole point is to walk through the store, touch the store's back wall, and then get out of the store without any of the store's employees asking, "Can I help you?" This is harder than it seems because the Gap almost definitely has some corporate mandate instructing employees to promptly engage with every customer who walks in the door. The Gapopticon, they call it, a brightly lit retail prison where you're constantly surveilled. Benjamin, in particular, can get all revved up about this subject, how the modern incarnation of the panoptic surveillance state is, in fact, a shopping mall, how a shopping mall's many employees and security guards and closed circuit cameras teach you not only how to be watched, but also how to watch yourself. How all those fitting room mirrors are meant to make you think constantly about how you look to other people, to see yourself at a one step remove, to submit to the tyranny of the gaze, and to understand that the gaze always finds you lacking. Being seen makes you less yourself, he often says, which makes the Gap challenge not only a fun game, but also a kind of symbolic performance art. To enter and exit the Gap without being seen. Okay, guys, I don't think I've ever been into a Gap. Have you? I am. I really can't recall. I'm trying to visualize it. Mm. I mean, I've been into Macy's. It's not like they're the only store that had cameras. To do it successfully, you have to innocently stand outside the store, waiting for the moment the employees are all looking elsewhere, then dart in and hide behind the racks of denim skirts until the coast is clear. Then scoot on toward the halter tops and duck behind the flip flops. Then follow that lane all the way to the back wall. Then leap out and touch the wall while the fitting room attendant is otherwise occupied. Then hurry out without running, because running always draws unwanted "can I help you" attention, while the rest of the group watches from just outside the Gap's doors and narrates the action like a bunch of ironic Bob Costases. "Oh, close one there, Bob." Or Costas. Okay. "Indeed, Bob, but a brilliant pivot near the romper's narrowly averted disaster. It's all so funny." It becomes one of their favorite pastimes, cranking mass market retail. They call it culture jamming. It's sort of a thing. It's a way to resist the homogenizing, earth destroying corporate capitalist machine, but with a sense of humor. They do things like dare each other to spend 2 hours sincerely pretending to shop for a Dodge Caravan without the salesman realizing it's a gag. Or, after that grows tiresome, they pose as employees of global retail chains and explicitly voice the crass consumer messages that are often implicit in the chain's popular advertising. Distinguished examples of this genre include the time one of them pretends to give out perfume samples at Dillard's, saying, "This scent will keep the darkness away," and the time in the Macy's men's department when one of them stalks the Tommy Hilfiger sweater section, saying, "It's 100% wool for 100% cheap," and the time one of them pretends to sell push-up bras at Victoria's Secret and tells customers the higher your boobs, the greater your worth. And the time they all go in full activewear to the Nike store and tell shoppers, don't worry about slave labor, just do it. They place stickers on mall cash registers and on ATMs and on fitting room mirrors that espouse assorted anti corporate messaging. Don't believe what they tell you. Shut the system down. Stick it to the man. Don't be a sheep. Question everything. Then they return to the foundry at night and gather in its first floor gallery and drink cheap beer and smoke clove cigarettes and give each other back rubs, all of them in twos and threes and fours, working one another's deltoids to mush. They are all new here, all of them plunked down into this neighborhood from faraway places, and they band together like this through communal touch. And yes, it's true. They do sort of resemble a troop of chimpanzees cleaning one another of ticks. Oh, thank you, Terry. And please, and yes, several residents, in fact, make this precise joke and call them names that are Jane Goodall related, but they don't care. They are intertwined. They eat together, drink together, sometimes sleep together. In a biology class, Elizabeth learned a new word, inosculation. It describes a phenomenon in which blood vessels from a transplanted organ or skin graft bind with and get entangled in a body's existing blood vessels, creating an entirely new vascular system. And this, she thinks, describes them perfectly. Her inosculated friends, all intertwined, all binding together. When they go see the breeders at Lollapalooza, they all look poignantly at one another during Cannonball and mouth that one perfect lyric. All be your whatever you want, like it was written for them. About them, why back rubs? Why not? They are all in the arts, for God's sake. They are making an insanely poor decision in this trickle down economy. And what you do when you are making big mistakes is find other people to make them with you. If you were going to be destitute for the rest of your life, well, this might as well be pleasurable. You might as well have a good time along the way. You might as well say yes to what feels good. And backrubs feel good, and pot brownies also, they feel good. And belting out Annie DeFranco and Tori Amos songs while standing and sometimes jumping or even dancing on the couch, that feels really good. I've never heard of Annie DeFranco, and I can't tell you one Tori Amos song, but I'm sure they're very good. Megan Fox, but mm. And drinking absinthe and reading poetry aloud feels good. And doing shots of pulverized hallucinogenic mushrooms mixed with lemon juice tastes bad but feels good. And doing whip hits feels mostly good, except for that moment right after you inhale when it feels like your head very quickly shrinks and then just as quickly explodes. There's a term used to describe the microsecond after the Big Bang when the known universe grew from a microscopically small speck to an infinitely large expanse. The term is cosmic inflation, and that's what the expression they use to describe what their heads do on whippets and what their hearts do when they're together. Elizabeth is not accustomed to making such open and sincere declarations of friendship and intimacy, but she has come to realize that for the first time in her life, there will be nothing tearing her away from these people. There's no imperious father to one day announce that the family is again moving to a new city, and so she can discard her usual guarded and aloof manner, her usual disaster preparedness. These people will not go away. She will not go away. She can finally allow herself to love. And so it is that one Sunday, a few weeks after Jack's shelf, they are all talking, or taking the outbound red line, colonizing the train's last car. A big group of about a dozen of them on one of the first pleasant days of spring, and they are heading out for an afternoon scouring the thrift stores in Andersonville. Elizabeth sits leaning against Agatha, who is working out some tension in Elizabeth's neck with an iron grip that is, at the moment, positively Vulcan. The train has dipped into a tunnel at this point in the line, and so the bright sunlight has given way to a view of Russian gray walls. Then Benjamin stands up and clears his throat, and they all look at him, and he says, "Since none of you Philistines read the newspaper, I guess I'll be the one to break it to you." "Break what?" Elizabeth says. And then Benjamin pulls out that day's Tribune. The art section, the cover, which features a big photograph of Jack and Elizabeth holding hands near one of the more PG rated girl in window images. It had been taken the night of his show, and the attendant story, which Benjamin promptly reads aloud, is all about the trendy and exploding art scene in Wicker Park. The reviewer names the Foundry in particular as a locus of this transformational energy, the center of life in this otherwise blighted neighborhood. And then, toward the end of the story, the writer describes Jack's show specifically and says the gallery has sold every single one of Jack's photographs. The reviewer declaring that Jack Baker is the most exciting new artist in Chicago. And as Benjamin finishes reading, they all look at one another silent and amazed. And then the train squeals to a stop, the Grand Avenue stop, which couldn't be more perfect because when the train stops, the doors slide open. The conductor announces over the speakers, "This is grand," and Elizabeth hears the pun for the first time, never before having registered it until this very moment. And she looks around the car at her beautiful friends, all laughing, and Jack, in true sensitive guy form, sitting there blushing, and she feels like they are the candlewick of history, the bright, glowing, ember-hot beacons of change and progress. These few commuters being spirited under the city on mass transit. She is more certain than ever that she's in love with Jack and in love with these friends and with this city and with this bright Sunday in spring. It is precisely as the train conductor said. It is indeed grand. Next chapter. Mm. And then one day they began losing friends. What had been in their early 20s a thrilling accumulation of new people and new experiences and more or less constant amusement became, in their late 20s, a contraction as friends took jobs out of town or left the city to join significant others elsewhere. At first, these individual changes seemed discrete, just singular losses, not a pattern, not a trend. And so the basic contours of everyone's lives remained mostly the same. But then, seemingly all at once, the babies arrived. Jack and Elizabeth's friends began reproducing, and did so with such amazing synchrony, it was as if they all had agreed in secret behind Elizabeth's back to get pregnant during a small window between the ages of 28 and 32. It felt to Elizabeth like she'd been double crossed. She was astonished that these co op people, these artists and rebels who in the 90s raged hard against the mainstream, would, only 10 years later, so obediently join it. Most of them left Wicker Park, decamping for cheaper rents elsewhere, for places where they could spread out, was how they put it. The first time Elizabeth attended a Dora the Explorer themed birthday party in a suburban backyard, she felt, oh, thank you, Jerry. Oh, She felt utterly betrayed. Her closest friends, friends from college, friends she had lived with, partied with, gotten drunk with, traveled with, did recreational drugs with, were disappearing from her life. One by one, it was dismaying how swiftly this sometimes happened, how efficiently her friends could detach. Take Agatha, for example, probably Elizabeth's closest friend. Elizabeth and Jack regularly went to Agatha's place for dinners and movie nights, regularly took road trips with Agatha and her husband to Saugatuck or Door County. Then Agatha got pregnant, and talk turned to how much the baby would adore Auntie Elizabeth. Agatha swearing that the child would not interfere with their friendship one bit, a promise that she could not keep for even 30 minutes after giving birth. Elizabeth getting a text late at night saying, "It's a boy," and Elizabeth writing, "What?" And Agatha replying, "Creamy, surprise." And Elizabeth writing, "Oh my God, congrats, I'm on my way." And Agatha saying, "Actually, the baby's a little fragile right now, and so to prevent infection, we're only allowing family." And that's how quickly Elizabeth had become unnecessary. That's how quickly Agatha's new tribe, this family, had taken precedence. Elizabeth read this message and ached. "I thought we were family too," is what she wanted to say. This happened each time another of their close friends had children. The prenatal promises all postpartumly broken, each set of new parents receding from view while Elizabeth struggled to hold on to fraying friendships. She would plan brunches with old friends only to have them say, "Sorry, that's during nap time." She'd plan lunches and they'd say, "That's usually when the kids melt down." She'd plan dinners and they'll say, "Right in the middle of bedtime." She'd plan alcohol and her own cocktail shaker and her own coupe glasses to her friends' houses so they had literally no responsibilities whatsoever, could simply sit back and drink and visit, but they'd still decline. "Sorry, we're totally wiped out." And even those rare nights when she and Jack successfully wheedled their way into their friends' homes for a little face to face social interaction, these nights tended to end without any quality conversation whatsoever, as the presence of new people in the house seems to serve as a kind of trigger for children to get aggressively and sometimes violently attention seeking, and the parents, perhaps on their best behavior and not wanting to discipline their children harshly in the presence of friends, would just let it all kind of happen. And the kids, testing their delicious newfound freedom, would start acting up and shouting and roughhousing, whereby the parents would become even more frustrated. And the whole spiraling thing made Elizabeth feel guilty for being there at all. It made her feel like a bother. It made her feel like her invitations and visits were annoying her friends. Eventually, she stopped asking. Eventually, it was just Elizabeth and Jack. Looking at the expanse of the next several decades together. The two of them alone, connecting with friends only distractedly during occasional chaotic birthday parties. And yet her friends did not seem exactly distressed about this new life. On the contrary, Elizabeth could not help but notice that her friends seemed to prefer it, seemed to really enjoy the larger houses and suburban backyards they'd upgraded to. They were altogether pretty satisfied with the situation. They had a child, and sometimes they had another. They, oh, thank you, Rob. Oh, trophy. I love trophies. They were a unit, a fellowship, a family. They kept asking Elizabeth when she would have a family too. It made her feel like she was maybe missing out on something that maybe the ideals of her early 20s were blinding her to this fundamentally important life experience. She thought about her behavior back when she was young, her occasionally dreadful behavior, how she and her mm, friends would all go out to suburban malls and spend the whole day mocking. It felt so satisfying back then, so hilarious, even kind of important. Culture jamming was their name for it, giving it the sparkle of high-minded, virtuous resistance. The capitalist machine was plainly immoral, they thought, and therefore the people who were complicit within the machine were also plainly immoral. And therefore, she did not have to feel bad for making fun of or feeling superior to these people. That is seductive logic when you're in your 20s, but now Elizabeth looked back on it and felt embarrassed. Their whole wa- their whole project seemed snotty to her, arrogant, sanctimonious, even sort of grossly entitled. That was a pre-globalized world, pre-9/11 world, pre-housing bubble world, a world before the Great Recession, when they all sort of understood implicitly that however much they resented and resisted the mass economy, they would also have little trouble eventually finding a job and a livelihood within it. It made Elizabeth think that maybe those friends who'd migrated to the suburbs were, in fact, the most enlightened ones. They'd been the first to see through the delusion. She and Jack had moved to Chicago to become orphans, to cut themselves loose from incompatible birth families and create a new family among the like minded people of the co op. And they had succeeded for a time, but what they hadn't considered was that people don't stay like minded forever. And when their minds change, so did the family. Elizabeth should have seen it coming. She understood how many people in a single person could, over a lifetime, be. She'd seen so many different Elizabeths in the many schools she'd attended growing up. In one place, she was a math geek. In another, she took up the cello and became a music nerd. In the next place, she joined the ecology club and committed to becoming a forest ranger. Then it was theater, and she began writing plays and monologues. At the next school, she joined the debate team and planned to be a lawyer. And the weird thing was, all of these selves felt true at the time. At each school, she took this test, this inventory of interests and passions that told you what career you might want to pursue. And every year, the test spit out a different answer. One year, it really said she should be a mathematician. The next, a music teacher. The next, a forest ranger, a playwright, a lawyer. Even her answer to the simplest question, where are you from, shifted from place to place. Elizabeth adopting whatever town she'd most recently come from as her new hometown. She was aware that oneself could change and evolve like that, and so it was not unimaginable that she was now evolving again, becoming someone new, a parent, maybe, a mother. She started bringing it up with Jack, began wondering out loud whether they should consider having a child, and when he hesitated, she asked whether their reluctance to have a family was possibly a symptom of their own difficult childhoods, suggesting that maybe they were afraid of duplicating exactly the conditions that drove each of them away from their own families. That allowing these fears to prevail was sort of like letting their awful family somehow win, and that being aware of these outcomes might in fact be an inoculation against them. Eventually, he agreed, and when Toby was born, Elizabeth came to finally understand exactly where all her friends had gone. She was astounded by how her priorities shifted all at once immediately, how any task other than keeping Toby safe, keeping Toby healthy, seemed like a diversion or an interruption. She understood with some remorse that if one of her childless friends insisted on coming over during bedtime for martinis and conversation, it wouldn't feel exactly unwelcome, but it would feel a little irrelevant. Like Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain, but then stopping for tea. She realized that her old friends had not abandoned her, or at least she had not done so in any volitional way. It was just that their attention had been seized, their love redirected, the purpose of each day reoriented, unavoidably and involuntarily. She finally comprehended parenthood's strange paradox, that it was simply annihilating while at the same time also somehow deeply comforting. It was both soul devouring and soul filling. She quickly forgave her old friends, and she quietly chastised herself for being impatient with them and for being a person they could so promptly drop, a person who had probably made it irritatingly obvious at all those birthday parties that she was only partially there, with one foot out the door. She'd always lived like this, late for lunches, taking too long to write back, not calling for long spells, double booking herself accidentally. It was like she was unconsciously advertising, I don't really need you that much. She made her peace with the losses as best she could, vowed to be a better person henceforth, and searched for new friends the way most parents do among the mothers and fathers at her kids' school, which was why she was here, standing near the blacktop driveway of Park Shore Country Day with Brandy one late summer morning, watching parents drop off kids, listening to Brandy describe like a butler in a Jane Austen novel each new arriving family. Mr. Keith Masterson and Miss Julie Masterson of Forest Hills, Brandy said, nodding in the direction of a silver Toyota Sequoia now entering the circular drive. They are both dentists. If you ever make a dessert for their son, Brax, be absolutely sure that it's sugar-free. Got it, Elizabeth said. Thanks. Mr. Brian Green and Miss Penelope Green of Evanston, Brandy said, pointing at a new incoming car. She is a lifelong vegan. Word of advice, never ask how she gets enough iron in that diet. It seems to trigger her, and she becomes unnecessarily intense and sort of activist. Okay, good to know. Park Shore Country Day School was not actually located in the country, nor was it, strictly speaking, a school den. It was a K through 12 private school located in a converted former Carnegie Library, right there in Park Shore's quaint downtown, a few blocks from where the shipworks was currently under construction. Its guiding philosophy was that it took the old country day school model as an inspiration, a pedagogical starting point. What this meant in practice was that children of different ages all learned together in the same rooms, that teachers taught a multidisciplinary curriculum rather than specializing in any one field. The idea, as explained in the school's colorful marketing pamphlets, was that this format returned education to what it looked like before schools were taken over by the ethos of the assembly line, before education turned into a kind of Fordist factory that treated students as machines and teachers as assembly workers, each overseeing a narrow component of that machine: science, math, reading, writing, etc. At Park Shore, everything was sort of smashed together, which better reflected how kids really learn, evolutionarily, naturally, allegedly. Elizabeth and Jack had enrolled Toby at Park Shore Country Day because of its reputation as a place suited to Toby's particular challenging disposition. With its fluid approach to teaching, its lack of rigid rules, its focus on student movement and sensory activities, it was an environment in which Toby seemed able to relax, to remain steady and calm. He had fewer outbursts in this school, fewer tantrums, fewer violent episodes. Toby was not a boy who could sit at a desk all day and listen, and Park Shore seemed ideologically opposed to sitting all day, or for that matter, desks. So it was a good fit. Mr. Anthony Forrester and Miss Martha Forrester of Northbrook, Brandy said. She's in HR for United Airlines. He's been in between jobs for like 3 years. We mostly stopped asking him about it. Gotcha. Mr. Theodore Norman and Miss Carrie Norman Ward of Winnetka, though she's soon to be just Carrie Ward again without the hyphen. They're getting a divorce. Oh no, that's not gossip, by the way. They are very forthcoming about it. They even posted about it on Facebook. This really long essay they co-wrote together explaining how they grew distant from each other and now they're separating with deep respect and thanks and friendliness. How evolved. And they've been going to a couples counselor until they realized that they couldn't save the marriage, at which point they switched to an uncoupling counselor who conveniently worked in the same office. They're really trying to make the divorce as seamless and ethical as possible for the kids. Elizabeth nodded. The part about them growing distant from each other. What happened? What do you mean? How did they get so distant? What was the cause? Nothing really happened, or nothing in particular, as far as I know. They just stopped feeling as strongly as they once did. It's that thing, I suppose, that happens to many couples. The passion faded, the spark died. There really ought to be a name for that. There is a name for that. There is hypoactive marital attachment disorder. No kidding. It's a condition, Elizabeth said. I'm actually studying it at work. It's the fancy diagnostic term for the phenomenon you're describing, the cooling of romantic love over time. I had no idea. We're testing a cure. A cure? So you've invented what, a love potion? Technically, it's a dopamine neurotransmitter targeting a very specific genetic polymorphism. But yeah, around the office, we call it love potion number 9. How interesting. It's a cocktail of several important peptides that hopefully can help people connect with how they used to feel about their spouse. Love in a bottle. How about that? Brandy said. Then quickly added, Mike and I renew our vows at least once a year. Yeah, I've seen the pictures on Instagram. That's beautiful. It's our way of saying, I would marry you all over again. It's how we keep the romance alive. Good for you. Then Brandy spotted a new family arriving in a bright red electric car that now crept past them, making no sound whatsoever. And she leaned in toward Elizabeth and said, Well, speak of the devil, here come the lovebirds. I suppose you know about the lovebirds. She was talking about Kate and Kyle, recently transplanted to Illinois from Silicon Valley, a couple who'd become, in their short time here, a bit of a curiosity among the parents of Park Shore. Kyle was in his mid-40s, father to a 9-year-old Camila. Kate was in her mid-20s, the stepmom. Everyone assumed. Whenever Kate and Kyle parted, like right now, as he dropped Kate and Camila off at school, they would, in plain view of their daughter and her teachers and whatever other parents and pedestrians were around to see it, make out. they would full on snug heavily and with tongue like teenagers on prom night. Wow, Brandy whispered, watching them going at it. Kate had her arms wrapped around Kyle, a stocky man with a body that looked perfectly engineered for rugby, and was kissing him longingly, deeply, and unselfconsciously. And when they were done kissing, Kyle gave Kate a spank, a quick, flirty pat on the fanny, rather loud right there in front of all the children. Wow, Brandy said again. Kate had been a surprising addition to the school's community. First, because of her age, she was only 25, which may have felt odd to the 30 and 40 somethings that someone so fresh faced was also parenting, mothering, adulting. And Kate had probably intuited the group's disquiet because she often made offhand comments meant to draw attention to this very divine. One of her favorite maneuvers being to begin a sentence with, well, for people of my generation. One time, Kate had actually told Elizabeth, "You're like the cool mom I never had," which caused Elizabeth a surprising amount of displeasure, privately for several days. Kate worked at the new Google Hub that had recently opened in the West Loop. Though it was unclear what she did there, it involves a lot of math and a lot of programming, she had said. I beg you not to ask me about it. It's so boring. She was friendly and kind and very outgoing and seemed to have an excellent relationship with her stepdaughter. But some of the parents had come to find her a little strange, a little daunting, mostly because Kate and her husband had an open marriage. And Kate was perfectly open about this. Actually, openness was probably her defining quality. She was absolutely forthright and honest about subjects most of them would talk about only while in therapy or drunk. For example, they had all come to know that Kate hooked up with and sometimes dated, and occasionally even went on out of town vacations with men who were not her husband. She spoke of this regularly and with no shame whatsoever, like it was the most normal thing in the world, and maybe it was normal for a Californian. Excuse me? Excuse me, fuck you. That's not true. Mm. Well, Potion number 9 was a cinder bullet. I know, but I love that song. Um, she's got a pad down in 40. I love that song. Stop, Terry. It's not a California thing. Okay. So or a millennial. Honestly, they didn't know, but it was a bit of a scandal among some of the older parents, most of whom were of Midwestern stock, and so their comfort discussing matters private and sexual tended to fall somewhere between timidity and horror. Ladies, Kate said as she approached, I apologize for looking so shook this morning, but I had a sleepover last night that went real late. You are literally witnessing my walk of shame. I'm just imagining, like, I can hear crickets chirping, blanks, like, okay, thanks. It was true that Kate's long ashen hair, it looked like it was naturally brunette, but she dyed it gray for some reason, was still wet from the shower, but otherwise she looked as she always did, which was improbably stylish and cool and radiant and glowing and young. Kate had this ability to take certain scorned fashions and upcycle them into respectability, like the gray hair, for example, which looked amazing and striking on her. And she wore these enormous glasses that should have been much too large for her face, square glasses with thick frames that would have been considered irredeemably nerdy when Elizabeth was a kid, but nevertheless looked really hip on Kate. The glasses kept sliding down her nose, and so Kate's most frequent tick was pushing them back up every 2 to 5 seconds, and even this seemed endearing. She also wore pants that Elizabeth wouldn't have been caught dead in, these high waisted things from the 80s that Elizabeth would have described as mom jeans, and that looked absolutely terrible on everyone except somehow young women like Kate. You had a, I'm sorry, a sleepover, Brandy said. Kate looked at them gravely over the rim of her big glasses, and I am low key suffering. Seriously. What do you mean sleepover? Oh, okay. Well, most people my age use the term hookup, but in the case of your generation, maybe one night stand would be the right nomenclature. I see. Yeah, Kyle took one look at me this morning and literally LOL'd. Your husband, Brandy said, he doesn't mind that you have sleepovers? Oh, no, of course not. He has sleepovers too. And thank God, because I don't know how I could possibly be a good parent without his girlfriends around to help out. Which is why I really respect moms like you two doing it all on your own. That is amazing. Oh my God. The I would not be okay with my husband having girlfriends, Brandy said. But they're wonderful, Brandy said. It's like we're all in this big extended family together. Plus, I have about a dozen built-in babysitters. Could you imagine our 9-year-old daughter? Oh, thanks. My mom's boyfriend Frank made this lunch for me, and my dad made the dessert. Okay. I know my stepmom. Where's the mom at? Is she the mom? Is it? Mm. A dozen? Kate shrugged. It takes a village. Anyway, I prefer the term sleepover to hook up because sleepover makes it easier to explain to Camila why there's someone spending the night. Okay, but is that ever confusing for her, having a stranger in the house? Oh, she loves it. It's like in the morning, she suddenly has a brand new friend. Uh-huh. Or as in today, two friends. Well, Brandy said, tightly gripping the handles of her straw tote bag. It's like I always say, you need to give love to get love. Okay, then, Kate said. And then she bid them farewell and went off in search of coffee. Elizabeth and Brandy watching her go. Bless her heart, Brandy said. I mean, I wouldn't let her anywhere near my family, but bless her heart. And then the bell rang and the school day was starting, and Brandy hugged Elizabeth goodbye. And Elizabeth decided to stay a moment in Park Shore rather than fight traffic back into the city. And so she strolled the sidewalks of downtown, eventually passing the local coffee shop, and through the front window she saw Kate sitting at a table, an immense latte in front of her, and after a moment's deliberation, Elizabeth went inside. Excuse me? Kate looked up. Oh, hi. Hi. Yeah, so we don't know each other very well, but can I ask you something? Of course. It's personal. It's about you and your husband. Okay. It's about what you do. Like for a living? No, I mean what you do romantically. Oh, you mean the sleeping around? Yes. Sure, ask me anything. I guess what I want to know is the way he described it. I mean, does it really feel like that? Like what? Like an extended family? Kate grinned. Actually, yeah. I mean, obviously, there are powerful emotions that need to be clearly communicated and managed. But for the most part, yes, it's a big family. Elizabeth nodded. Why do you ask? Kate said. It sounds kind of nice. It is nice. I haven't felt like part of something like that in years. I really miss it. Well, sit down, Kate said. I love converting people. They spent the rest of the morning at that coffee shop, Elizabeth listening to Kate's fierce critique of modern marriage. It's stupid, Kate said. Marriage is just stupid, or at least the way we currently practice marriage, how we currently conceptualize it in the West. It's so idiotic. We're stuck in this useless heuristic. I think it's time to sunset the whole idea. Oh my God, please do not go to Jack with this. He's going to be even more upset than the vibrator. You want to get rid of marriage? I want to update it. I want to beta test new models. I want to break it off and start all over again. The way I think of it is marriage is just a technology that was never quite future proof. Like it may have been a good tool in Victorian England or whatever, but for us now, not so much. We have these 21st century relationships running 18th century software, so it's glitchy and it crashes all the time. Typically, with any technology, we try to innovate and update and improve it, but with marriage, we seem to refuse all progress. We've convinced ourselves that actually we like all these glitches. We prefer all the crashes. If it weren't so hard to use, it wouldn't be worth it. We've been persuaded that the bugs are features, so it's dumb. But what are the bugs specifically? Well, the biggest one, obviously, is this thing about how there's this one superhuman person who completes you. This one person who meets all your needs, which historically speaking is an absurd notion, a total aberration. I mean, take the Greeks, as in the ancient Greeks, like Plato. In Plato's time, a husband's job was to provide financial security for his wife. That was his role. She, meanwhile, had lovers for her sexual needs, and the temple for her spiritual needs, and the in laws for her child rearing needs, and the village for her social needs. Then, centuries later, we decided that actually no, all those needs should be met by one person, this magical spouse who is supposed to do what used to be the job of the whole big menage all alone. Is literally insane. But when I first met Jack, it really did feel like magic. I know it sounds cheesy, but that's how it felt at the time, like soulmates. That's just NRE. What's NRE? New relationship energy. It's when you're feeling those first fits of interest in another person. You know, the heightened, exuberant, all encompassing, oh my God, I want to merge with you completely. I'm familiar with it, Elizabeth said. The NRE feeling generally lasts about 6 months to a year at most. In the very best situations, it can last 3 years. How long have you and Jack been together? Married for 15 years, together for 20. So you understand. I mean, when was the last time you felt that way about him? That kind of thrilling, bubbly, erotic. Yeah, okay, you made your point. Don't feel bad. It happens to everyone. It's not your fault. You're just operating on a technology that is out of date and broken and maybe even sort of abusive in how it makes people feel like failures and frauds. I mean, there's a good reason why marriage had nothing to do with romance or sex or love for most of history. You ever wonder why arranged marriages were like the norm for centuries? I'd say patriarchy. Okay, yeah, but also it's because NRE feelings of romantic love are strong but fleeting. And a marriage needs to be dependable, long lasting, resilient. So people all throughout history thought it was actually dangerous to have too much romance within marriage, hence letting the parents decide. That's right. People do crazy shit because of NRE. They cannot be counted on to be rational. Do you know what a sea squirt is? A sea squirt? No. It's a marine invertebrate that floats around the ocean looking for coral to attach itself to. Once it's found a good anchor, it settles down and eats its own brain. I assume there's a metaphor in there. For the sea squirt, finding security makes thinking unnecessary. People do this too when they found the one. Thanks. Hey, Plato said the same thing, that romantic love was irrational and fickle. Plato thought that the most stable kind of love was more like friendship type love, more, platonic. Exactly. So it's best not to mix something as temporary as romance with something as permanent as marriage. And I'd say, given our current divorce statistics, that Plato was onto something. Half of all marriages end badly, and another quarter persist only for the sake of the kids. Did you know that 70% of all married people have affairs? I did not. It's a complete disaster. And the reason is that we all expect way too much from marriage. It's like till death do us part, forsaking all others. No, that's fucking impossible. And yet people think I'm the crazy one. And I understand. I've seen the looks. I know I don't get invited to the play dates. But the way I see it, what my husband and I do is actually quite conservative. We're trying to maintain stability, maintain a family. We're trying to preserve marriage by not asking it to bear quite so much. But why even get married in the first place if you're so against it? Because we have two competing impulses alive within us. the need for novelty, and the need for stability. It's this constant push pull. When I have too many hookups, I crave stability. When I have too many nights chilling on the couch, I crave novelty. The key is to celebrate the contradiction, which you can't do in a normal marriage. The quote unquote normal monogamous marriage was not invented for people like you and me. Monogamy was invented for another user altogether. Monogamy was a necessary invention to placate the saddest, most undesirable, most bottom rung, inept, and pitiful dudes out there. Okay, wow. Think about it. Patriarchy plus capitalism is an unstable system without monogamy. Capitalism ensures that wealth gets more and more concentrated, and patriarchy ensures that it's concentrated among men. It's a system that incentivizes women to marry older, powerful guys. And if you don't have monogamy to level the playing field, you'll just have droves of pathetic young men unable to find wives. And as we all know, nothing is worse for the social fabric than a looser dude who can't get laid. So monogamy has to be introduced as a kind of elaborate software patch. I've never thought about it that way. Marriage is a technology, and some technologies amplify human abilities, while other technologies restrict them. A lever is a technology that amplifies, while a lock is one that restricts. And all I want to do is turn marriage from a lock into a lever. I wanted to enable me to occasionally experience that romantic NRE rush without feeling like a failed spouse. But I've seen you with your husband. You do not lack for romance. Seriously, Elizabeth, go have an affair. Or better yet, tell Jack to have an affair. Oh my God. Afterward, he will be 1,000% more attractive to you. It's like witchcraft. I'm not sure Jack would agree to that arrangement. Let's go out, the four of us, a double date. My husband is really good at talking about this stuff. It'll be fun. I don't know. Text Jack right now. Tell him you have an idea for a new adventure. He'll be so happy. No, he really won't. Having separate lovers. This week I suggested we have separate master bedrooms and he freaked out. Separate bedrooms is a great idea, but I think master is a problematic word. Really? How? Come on, Elizabeth. Master, doesn't it have connotations? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Many people of your generation don't. My point is, Jack and I have been together for so long, I can't just introduce something like this, something this radical. It would be really unfair. Do you know what I do for a living? Some kind of math? It's called algebraic topology, which is a branch of mathematics that mostly studies the intrinsic qualitative aspects of spatial objects undergoing homeomorphic transformations. Okay. Basically, it's the mathematics of deformation and change. Like the way I explain it is imagine a basketball that's the shape of a what's the shape of a basketball? A circle? Not quite. I mean, a sphere. There you go. Well, what if I deflated the basketball? It's no longer a sphere. Right. And according to geometry, it's now a new object, but we all know intuitively it's not a new object. It's still the same object, a basketball. You can deflate a basketball into a shape of a bowl, and it's still fundamentally a basketball. You can fold it like a slice of pizza, and it's still fundamentally a basketball. That's not a ball. But what if you ripped the thing in two? Then it's no longer a basketball. And it's also not two basketballs. It has been transformed into genuinely different things, two new objects. And that's what my math does. At its most simplistic, it describes how much you can deform an object before it becomes a new object. Got it. This also has implications for big data, though I beg you not to ask about that. Your point is, things change. That is a given. The real question is, how much change is bearable? What you have to ask yourself is how much can your marriage change before it's no longer fundamentally itself? Like, if I ask Jack to do this, will it rip the basketball? Actually, what I was thinking was, are you sure it hasn't already been ripped? Elizabeth nodded. Okay, maybe I'll talk to Jack, she said. A new adventure. That sounds pretty good. I think we could use something like that. Yay, Kate said, clapping. Thank you for this. It's all very enlightening. You're so welcome. Now, can I ask you a question? Sure. I was curious about something you said about how you once believed you and Jack were soulmates. Yes. Do you still believe it? Well, what you have to know is that Jack is wonderful, thoughtful, smart, good with Toby, a deeply decent man. But do you believe he's your soulmate? Actually, no, not anymore. When did you stop believing it? Tuesday, November 4th, 2008. That is remarkably specific. It was a Memorial Day. What happened? It's a bit of a tale, Elizabeth said. Let's just leave it at that was the day I sort of unraveled. And that is the end of that chapter. And actually, or at the end of that section, and we begin a new section tomorrow. And that section is called The Unraveling. So I guess we're going to learn about Memorial Day. Is that what it was, Memorial Day? Put my sweater. What did you think about that? So I don't accidentally flash you. That wouldn't be bad. We're not on the left right now. Okay. This is all an elaborate plot. Oh my god, my bow is falling. To get them to get into their swinger shit. Oh, thank you, Jerry. I swear these swinger people, they're freaking they're like I don't know, like piranhas or something. They're just looking for anyone to be like, so will you do it? She's gonna go on a dinner with her and Jack and start trying to play footsie with Jack. And her husband is gonna be winking at Elizabeth like, hey. Like, this is what these people do. Anyway, the unraveling tomorrow. I love you so much. I see you tomorrow. I have to pee really bad. Good night. I love you.